Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Reckless Optimist podcast. My name is Megan. I'm a family nurse practitioner with a deep passion for mental health. On this show, we showcase guests who have shown tenacity, grit, mental strength, and who embody the word resilience. A quick disclaimer before we start. This show is not a substitute for mental diagnosis or treatment. We do recommend that if you're struggling with your own emotional well-being, you see a mental health provider. I'm so excited that you guys are here. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Today on the podcast, we have Lauren. Lauren and I know each other through mutual friends. Shout out to my friend Alexis for setting us up. She is an amazing person. She shares her story tonight. It is very raw and very vulnerable about food addiction, binging, purging. She did go to rehab throughout her journey for this addiction. And she is now an author, Big Boned, which details kind of a self-memoir about her journey through all of the struggles that she's gone through. She really, truly is a beautiful person inside and out. And I know you guys are going to love this story. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Help me welcome Lauren to the podcast. I'm so excited that you're here.
Excited to be here.
We were just talking before we jumped on how we have a really fun, how we know each other story.
Bananas, yeah.
Yes. So my college suite mate is friends with your college roommate, correct?
Yes.
Shout out to Alexis. And who's your roommate? Okay. Megan. Okay. Awesome. And so they connected us, and here we are.
I know. Fantastic. I love it.
I love how the universe conspires to help you, you know?
It's incredible. Really.
The synchronicity of it all. So where are you coming in from?
I am in north of Atlanta. So I'm in the Woodstock, Georgia area. Yeah, we are close.
Yes. And so you have written a book recently. What is the name of that book?
I did. I wrote a book. Is self-help memoir genre, but it's called Big Boned. And the subtitle is From Empty to Enough. And it's the story of the heavy truth about eating disorders and my love affair with food.
I love that, from empty to enough. It's such a visual representation, you know?
Yeah, good. I hope so. Yes, the subtitle plagued me like no other. Big Boned, I've had in my head for 20 years. And so I've always wanted to write Big Boned. But the subtitle itself took months. So yeah, I'm glad it resonates.
Yeah. So I'm excited to hear about your book. Before we jump into your story and the book, we start our episode out with a quote, a different quote for each guest. And the quote I have for your episode, I'm going to butcher her name, but Nairia Wahid, on her Wikipedia, it says she's the most famous poet on Instagram. I guess she's reposted a lot, but she's a beautiful poet. She talks a lot about womanhood, empowerment, love, relationships. And so the quote goes, "And I said to my body softly, I want to be your friend. It took a long breath and replied, I've been waiting my whole life for this." What does that quote make you feel?
Girl, that is beautiful. Okay, so full disclosure, I boohooed like a baby when I read this quote. So yeah, it is so incredibly touching. And I think right away, I was like, wow, like this is the thesis of Big Boned. Like this quote it hits home in so many ways. And so I think there's a lot to unpack here with this quote. Seeing the thesis of Big Boned, I mean that contextually, of course, my book is probably more about food and food addiction specifically over body image. But I think there's so much significance in what she's saying. Especially myself and my story, I have waged war on my body and with myself for so many years. And since, I remember the comparison trap, I mean, so early, right? Like age 10, age 11, those middle school years, those high school years. And so because of that criticism for so long, right? And then finding peace. And so finally being in a place where it's not the end and it's still not perfect. I talk a lot about being in the gray or the middle in my story. And so like this, it took a long breath and replied, just that symbolicness of peace and finding out where you're at with your body and your mind. So yeah, I think it's interesting. She said it, right? Like it took a long breath. And so I think even it is disconnected from self. And so I don't know if she meant that symbolically, but to me, it was certainly the disconnect still that we feel separate from our bodies. And so it doesn't feel like you yet. And so just getting there, right? And the evolution of self really, and learning to love oneself and learning to get to enough. Also, I was thinking like, oh my gosh, how much inner child work has this author done? Because this is deep, right? I think with my own therapist, we do a lot of parts work, internal family systems, speaking to that part, whether it be the critic part or the perfectionist part, and just learning to understand that part and why it's been protecting us or how it's been protecting us, and then what it's been keeping us safe from, and then unlearning a sense of undoing and how we get away from that, learning from ourselves. When I read this, there's so many things, Megan. I'm like, also, in my rehab chapter in the book, I talk about a guided meditation that we did in rehab. Just, yeah, it just like took me to that meditation. And that meditation specifically was about closing your eyes and visualizing your childhood home and walking in and waking yourself up as your younger self and getting a tour of your childhood home, and then seeing like how your parents are interacting with you and understanding from that, right? Like, was there a lot of love in your home? Was there a lot of connection in your home? And trying to understand because of that, like, then what did that lead to? But yeah, man, just what a sweet, endearing, like learning to love ourselves. And, it's still a journey I'm on every day. I think that's one of the reasons I didn't write my book for so long, was because I felt like I needed to be perfect. I needed to get there and I needed to fully love myself before I could write it. But yeah, I actually ordered this author's book right after I read the quote. I was like, I need to find this woman and I need to, but it's interesting too, like her story. I try to read up on her, and she doesn't make herself known a lot other than her work.
Very incognito. And what I love about her as a poet is a lot of poets are very wordy, as they are, and she's very short, concise, to the point, but hits hard,
Hits really hard. Yeah. And I think there's, again, I don't know her intention specifically as the author, but the way that she punctuates things and the way that she, some stuff that's lowercase, and yeah, it's just like the emphasis and the symbolism behind her words. Yeah.
Yeah, it was beautiful. When I was looking at different quotes for your episode, and this was the only one that I could use, I was like, nothing compares to this one. But I mean, very similar to you. When I read this quote, I just had flashbacks of hating my body for so long. I struggled with an eating disorder very young. I was about 10 years old when mine started. My parents had gone through like a tumultuous divorce. And, when you're young and everything is out of control, you control what you can. And for me, that was food. That eventually spiraled into bulimia. I had the whole perfectionism problem as well. But perfectionism's interesting. Like, you're holding yourself up to someone else's metric system, right? I can see that now that I'm 40. But I think too, when we were growing up, because I know you're close to my age because I looked at your bio, our role models were cocaine models, right? They were 90 pounds. You had Brittany Murphy and Nicole Richie and Paris Hilton, and, nothing against them, but our role models were people that were 90 pounds. And that's what beauty was. Back then, beauty equaled skinny. And I learned through my own eating disorder that, and I hate that it was like this, but the skinnier I was, the nicer people were to me. And that was a horrible thing for me to learn as a child. But yeah, anyway, this quote brought up a lot because it took me until this age, probably 40, to learn to love my body again.
Which is so sad. It's so sad. It's like, I wish I could give this gift, even though it's not perfect yet, but I wish I could give this gift to my younger, inner child. Like, it is, it's really sad that we are just discovering that, Megan.
Yeah. Well, I am so excited to hear your story. It sounds like we have a lot in common. So wherever you feel comfortable, just take us back.
Awesome. Yeah. So, gosh. Yeah, let's take it back, all the way back. So I talk about a couple really pivotal moments. I think there's a lot of really an amalgam of things through childhood that could have given me an eating disorder, right? Relationships with family, with friends. My parents specifically, there was a lot of perfection pressure in how we did things and how we acted towards, people and our elders and things like that. And big churchgoers. So there was a spiritual component to that as well. And so how I performed, whether it be in front of others or God or myself, that was number one, right? Just the pressure of perception even. So anyways, as a child growing up, I mean, that was tough enough. And then I had a rocky relationship with my father, but yeah, my mom, was the one that was kind of driving home the perfection piece. And I don't fault her for that at all, right? Like she was using the tools that she knew and how she grew up to raise me. And so I don't fault her for that. As I progressed through middle school and high school, I had a friend who had an eating disorder. And really that was my first real direct experience with bulimia and anorexia. And so I didn't at the time, I don't think I knew what to call it, but I saw her and I saw how it was affecting her life and how our friends around us were that skinny privilege, right? Like that you were just referring to. I mean, how people treated her was so fundamentally different based on her size. And so I was vulnerable. I mean, we're in middle school, high school. Like I am looking to anything that will make me more popular or pretty. And again, at the time, it was skinny meant pretty to me. And so I saw her. And so, there was an influence there. And, but I dabbled in it at that point. I was like, I want what she's got. I'll do whatever I can to get there, but also trying and failing miserably and being like, well, this is the pits, right? Like I can't make this thing work. Also, it's pretty hard when you're in middle school and high school. And, I feel like you're surrounded by more people and it's a little bit different. And so then fast forward to college and always looking for external, right? Also looking for the thing that's going to make me perfect or the thing that's going to make me skinny or pretty. And so always looking externally to fix myself, right? Waging war on the body. Again, like we talked with her quote. And freshman year, I went to a Thanksgiving dinner and I met my family friend there who I always say, like, she kind of handed me bulimia on a silver platter. She was eating in the kitchen at the time that the whole family was eating with each other. And I happened to walk in to get my tea, and she's like just gracefully eating her turkey. Even thinking about her now and like visualizing her eating that turkey was just so dainty, right? Like the way and just protective and quiet. And here I am, freshman year, I'm just like asking all the questions like, hey, what are you doing in here? Like, get back to the table. And she's like, no, 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 no. Like I prefer to eat in here in private, and this is why. And then she just came out with everything, right? Like her entire story. And I immediately started in my head just receiving it, right? And calculating my own disorder. Ooh, oh my gosh, I didn't know that you could be bulimic and do it this way, right? I always thought like it meant purging. And so by my cousin's friend giving me this other way, right? I was super receptive to it and was just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go home. I'm going to do the exact same things. And she's telling me everything. She's telling me the, dose of meds that she was on. She's telling me where she got it. She's telling me, when she did it and how she did it. And so I was like, oh my gosh, by her giving me the tools to execute bulimia in a way that I never even thought of before, I was like, heck yeah, like, oh, this is, oh, I can fast track my way to pretty, to skinny, to popular. And oh my gosh, Megan, even saying it, I'm like, like I wish I could just go and hug that girl and be like, listen, honey, like that is not the way. And so I left Thanksgiving and I drove back to my college dorm and calculated everything necessary to kind of start this new journey with bulimia. And so I did just that, and it started working and worked for a while. And by working, I don't mean, in a healthy way at all. And I eventually I got to a point where I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. I can't keep this up. I can't manage this. Again, freshman in college, I had to be at class, like all the things. It wasn't working into my schedule. And so I stopped for a minute, and then I had plastic surgery. I had a breast reduction the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, and had the reduction, and it really just turned my world upside down. I mean, that's major surgery for like an 18, 19-year-old. And I came out of surgery being like, oh my gosh, my entire body, my entire frame, how I wear my shirts, like how my clothes lay on my chest, everything had changed. And I mean, in post-op, I was like, nope, not going to work. I'm going to go to the extremes. I've got to lose this weight. I can't look this way. I can't, So that was really traumatic for me. I had no like psychological, any type of therapy prior to plastics, which I think would be super helpful, especially somebody that's that age. Understanding what that anatomical change means, post-operatively, right? This is gonna change not only your physical, but your mental. And this is how, and this is the time that you need to give it for your mind to catch up with your anatomical change, and all of those things I think that are necessary for somebody to have plastic surgery that age. I did not have. And so anyway, so come out of that and it was on. I was like, okay, I'm making up my mind. This is what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it, how I'm going to execute. And as my eating disorder became more advanced, I was fed by everyone around me. You look great. What are you doing? Oh my gosh, you look amazing. Can you tell me what you're doing? I want to do that too. You look so much better now that you're skinny. People said that in the church pews, in the neighborhood, down the college dormitory hallway. It was everywhere. It was everywhere. I could fit into clothes that were actually in the store now. So it wasn't just verbal recognition that what I was doing was helping. It was everywhere around me, society, how I fit into clothes in a store, just recognition all over the place, whether it's from a person or a thing. It just fueled the disorder. And so Ed became Ed, and I refer to my eating disorder as a person, so I call him Ed. So Ed became, kind of like a primary source of everything in my life, how I coped, how I controlled things. Yeah, it became so bad. And then junior and senior year, I was so incredibly sick. And then eventually my bulimia turned to anorexia. I didn't need purging anymore. I just stopped everything. And then I graduated college, and Ed was like just woven in, right? Just constantly woven in, depending on life, ebbing and flowing. It was either we were hot and heavy at one point, or, we would slow down and then we would pick back up. And I call the book Discovering, Dating, and Divorcing Ed. So really in 3 parts. But like during that dating period, it was just a relationship, like any other relationship. And Ed was my addiction. And depending on my environment, whether I was alone, whether I was with somebody, whether something triggered me, whether something, and if I was in therapy or not in therapy, it was just constant, whether my binging and purging or anorexic behaviors were stopping, that kind of thing. So then fast forward to, I guess, 6 years between graduating college and then meeting my husband, and we started dating. And then, even like getting happy in a relationship, like brings about change with food and food behaviors and all of that, and wanting to not hide things from this man that I loved. And so, man, Megan, just like trying to really take a step back from Ed. And for a while it was fine. And he knew me in college. And so he knew my extremes from one to the other and my weight changes. And so he knew that I had this eating disorder, and he knew everything. And so it was hard to hide from him too. Also a former poker player. So he's like, really good at reading. Like, you're lying to me. I'm like, great. Fantastic. So I can't hide this from you. But at different points in our relationship, I would really vow to him, I'm not going to bring this disorder home. I'm going to not purge in this house, or depending on, the environment. We bought our house in 2014. And so it was really important to me to keep that a safe haven. And then I hate to use the word using, but I started using food again. And my bulimic behaviors really ramped up into like 2017, where it was taking time away from work. It was taking time away from my relationship with my husband. And so in 2017, again, this is another thing too, like I resisted rehab for so many years. I was like, of course I can go to Remuda Ranch. Of course I can go to this other rehab facility. And I would apply, and they would be like, oh my gosh, it's 6 months and $1 gajillion, right? And be like, who can do that? I have bills to pay. I have a job now. Like, who can do that? And so, I was kind of frustrated, right? Like I was frustrated. And all my years of therapy, intuitive eating was the flagship of recovery for eating disorders. And that entire time I was like, why does that not work for me? Why? I can't do that. My brain doesn't work that way. I don't understand. And so I was just really frustrated, but also I was uber resistant to rehab. Like, ain't happening. I can't do that. I need to learn how to live life in the day to day. And I need to learn how to go to a Mexican restaurant and not walk out trying to figure out where the next toilet is. Like, I have got to figure out how to live. I've got to figure out how to go through a grocery store, and rehab isn't going to give that to me. And so it was December, I think, of 2016. And I was reading a book called Better Than Before by Gretchen Rubin. And she has a chapter in that book called Free from French Fries. I quote her a lot in my book, but she has this chapter in there, and I'm like, it was close to Christmas and I was reading it. And as I'm reading it, one of her first lines talks about, are you an abstainer or a moderator? And Megan, something in me, I was like, no one's ever asked me that question, like, everything in moderation. Yes, we've heard it our entire lives. I've heard it in every single Weight Watchers meeting that I've ever been to. Why hasn't anyone asked me the question this way? Are you a moderator or abstainer? Oh my God, that is so perfect. I was like, here I am freaking out. I'm reading this chapter, like I can't get enough of it. And she talks about, then she quotes this other like philosopher that says to take one drink would be too much. He's talking about alcohol. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is me. I just need to abstain. Listening to my brain, that doesn't work. Like, screw all of that. I need to abstain. And so here I am. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so profound. I run in the kitchen. I read the whole chapter to Matthew, and he was like, amazing. Okay, you found it. Great. Now go do it. Do the thing, whatever, And so here I am. I'm making my list. I'm like, okay, peanut butter, ice cream, sugar and carbs, essentially, these are my things. I need to abstain from this. And so then I was like, okay, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and I'm going to abstain, and it's going to be amazing. And I'm going to be Gretchen Rubin. It's going to be great. And so the next day I'm on this high from reading this book and this advice. I'm like, okay, here I am. I'm sure for a couple of days I was fine. I'm sure. And then the wheels came off and the same thing happened. And the same thing kept happening. And the same thing, so then I was having these mini, but also immense relapses while I'm trying to get sober. And it's April, I think, by this point. So I read it in December, however many months of just continuous relapse. And then in April, I'm driving down the road and I'm like, I can't continue. I know abstinence is the way. I know it's the way. I got to get there. And I can't do it on my own. And I want to do it on my own, but that's what I've been doing. That's what I've been trying for years and years and years. And so, okay, I need rehab. This is the thing that's telling me I need rehab, is I can't do it alone anymore. And I've been trying to bootstrap this thing and I can't. And so here I am, like, Googling rehabs on North Point Parkway, and some ad came up and it said an intensive program, right? And I didn't understand what intensive meant, but I did read that it was in short form, like it was a smaller day commitment or whatever. So I was like, ooh, whatever. I click on it, I call, somebody picks up. I really wasn't ready for somebody to pick up, I was just like, oh, okay, oh my God, I'm doing this. And it was incredible. Megan, like, she was an angel on the phone. It was the first place I called, but it was also the only place that I was aware of that had a shorter term program that wasn't $1 million. And so she said to me, I don't think we have space for you like right away, but I know that you need this. Can you give me a minute to figure out what I can? And so minutes later, I thought it was going to be like weeks later. Minutes later, she calls me back and she's like, can you get here in like 2 weeks? And so I was like, yes, I'll be on the next plane, like as soon as I can. And so I checked myself into rehab. That was in May of 2017. And it was quite an experience, hard, necessary, but so the rehab facility itself takes any addiction, right? So there's alcoholics there, eating disorder folks there, heroin addicts, you name it, everybody's there together. Everybody's doing the work together, which was also amazing because you realize just how alike you all are and how much food is the same cyclical addiction, just like any drug or alcohol. Anyways, we do the work. It's all abstinent lifestyle. So it doesn't matter who you are, what your addiction is, you're all on the same abstinence plan, which is no sugar, no white flour, and no caffeine. And so everybody's on that because no stimulants is like the basis behind that. Getting stimulants out of the body while you're in therapy. And I left there, Megan, and I was on a high. Like probably for the first, I was like on a sobriety high, and it was incredible. I felt the best I felt in years, years and years and years. And yeah, I maintained that sobriety for 5+ months. Felt amazing. Sobriety for me is so much more than just not being in the food, but bills being paid, your relationships intact. It's certainly like this cup that runneth over, where I was feeling high in so many different areas, right? Like everything was just easier, and I wasn't hiding. I was having to feel my feelings before, so that was different, and not just going to the food. But anyway, so come home, 5+ months sober. And when I say sober, I just mean maintaining that non-stimulant lifestyle. So no sugar, no white flour, no caffeine. And then I got pregnant with my first kiddo. And I was so incredibly sick that first trimester. And I was heading to, I usually say like loaf bread and caffeine were the only things that made me feel good. But the story behind it is that I had maintained sobriety that entire time. I did photography on the side at the time, and I was headed to a photo shoot. And I had to take my mom with me because I could barely hold a camera. So miserable this first trimester of pregnancy. And we get almost to Blue Ridge for this photo shoot. And there's a Zaxby's like up on this hill. And she looks at me and she said, "Baby girl, pull right in here. We're going to get you some French fries and we're going to get you a Dr. Pepper." And she was like, that'll just end all that nausea. You won't even, whatever. And I was like, that's insane. That's insane. I'm not gonna relapse. Like, no. And she's like, "Honey, this is not relapse. Like this is just to get you by." And I was like, okay, all right. And I did. And Megan, that was all it took to just downward spiral for my entire pregnancy. I gained 80 pounds with my first babe, and it was because I was and it wasn't pregnancy food, right? It was food that did not serve my body, and it was all the things that kept me eating more, right? And so had my baby, went through COVID, had the second kiddo, I kept that weight, and then continued to gain in a binge cycle. So after leaving rehab, and I don't know why this is, Megan, but like I've not purged since the day that I left. Well, really the day that I checked into rehab, because you can't purge when you're in rehab. Those people are watching you, but like the day that I checked myself into rehab, I have not purged since that day. Binging. So it's like I left one thing behind in Texas, but like the other thing, like the binge part, could not get rid of after I relapsed. So had the Zaxby's, started relapsing, and then binging became a thing for me. It wasn't like I could go have one cookie, I'd have to have 10, or I couldn't go to one fast food restaurant. I'd have to go to 5. And so just back on that cyclical nature of relapse, and then, to hell in a handbasket, right? Like I've already ruined it. So why not just screw it like the next 5 days until whatever day in my head happened to be like the day that I could start back over, whether it be Sunday, or for years, it was like Wednesday was my restart. I don't know. So then after my second child, I desperately wanted to go back to rehab, Megan, because I needed that structure again. I needed to find peace and abstinence to get me back to where I had been. I couldn't go back to rehab. At that point I had 2 kids. Yes, you can always go back to rehab. But I felt at that time I could not go back. I was like, I've got 2 kids at home. I've got a brand new baby. I cannot go back. My husband's counting on me. These 2 kids are counting on me. I can't go back. So then I started looking for other things. Right? What other tools are there that are going to fix me, that are going to fix this body, that are going to fix this food problem, that are going to fix this brain? And so I had started looking into bariatric surgery, and then I had vertical gastric sleeve in December of 2021. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be great. And I knew it was a tool. I knew it wasn't a brain fix, right? I was like, this is an anatomical tool that will help me pause. right? That's going to help me be like, that's enough. Like maybe we shouldn't do that. Like just an extra little pause. I was like, that's all I need. Once I have this, done. I'm not going to ever be in the food anymore. I'm never going to binge. It's going to be great. And so I had the surgery. And of course the surgeon is like, are you done having babies? Because we don't, like not that you can't get pregnant after the surgery, but like for this surgery to be as successful as it can be, we really want you to kind of be done with that chapter. And so I was like, absolutely, I am done having the babes. Like, we are good. Quiver is full. Thanksgiving table set. We're good. And then, so I had the surgery, had fantastic results. And it did. It was like this incredible pause, Megan. It facilitated change in how I ate, how I thought about food, the desire that I had. Ghrelin, there's the hormone that's produced in the stomach, like part of that production is cut off when you have a VSG. And so even that lack of production of ghrelin in my stomach was producing change in me and how I thought about food and my desires and, the food noise and stuff. And so anyways, that was great. And then I get pregnant with my third. It was the healthiest pregnancy out of my three. And I didn't want junk while I was pregnant. I ate super healthy my entire pregnancy. And I attribute that to bariatric surgery. I mean, I had a fantastic experience with Margot. And the second she came out and I started breastfeeding, I was ravenous, just like normal, like you would typically be. But like, how can I eat 10,000 calories a day? I went to my surgeon and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, I've blown the lid off my, like, have I changed everything? Please hook me up to an ultrasound, make sure everything's intact. And he's like, don't worry. The second you stop breastfeeding, everything will be back to normal. And that never happened, Megan. Never happened. And so, here I am. I'm almost, 4 years post-op, and I am continuing to figure out what my life looks like, as I continue down this journey. I mean, so when you leave rehab, they encourage you to like get in the fellowship immediately, right? So like the OA, AA, NA, the brand of fellowship, right? So my specific meaning being OA or FA, Overeaters Anonymous or Food Addicts Anonymous. And they encourage you to get a sponsor, 90 meetings in 90 days when you leave. And so I started hot and heavy with the fellowship, but then I stopped and I haven't been back in a really long time. And so I went last Sunday to my first OA meeting in a really long time. And it was fantastic, Megan. It was like refreshing, and you hear recovery in those rooms, and you hear stories of hope, and you hear like-minded people talking about the things that you deal with every single day. And Ed and how, so yeah, it's like, I think too with the book, it's like, I've wanted to write that book this entire time. I knew my title. Like I told you, I knew my title. I knew my title in college, but I'm like, well, this is kind of a grim story if I'm telling people that this thing lives with you your whole life. But I also think that if somebody had told me that a long time ago, like instead of searching for a cure, like, why am I not perfect? Why can I not get better? Why can I not rid myself of Ed? Why can't I eradicate this disorder? I wish if people had been more open with me about living with this as a disease. Like eating disorders are chronic. They are a chronic illness. And so why isn't that more talked about in the recovery community, specifically for food, right? Because we have to eat to live. And I think a lot of times I feel jealousy towards other addictions, which is like such a weird and sick thing. But I resent as my disorder because I hate that I can't just stop eating, like I have to nourish my body. And I wish I could just stop. And I wish like that wasn't a thing. I wish, parties with food weren't a thing, or family gatherings with food weren't a thing. Thanksgiving, Christmas, it's literally our entire lives. It's like every single event has to be food related or food, So anyways, I struggle with that. But yeah, my struggle isn't over. I think too, like that quote, just like the lifetime learning to love oneself, and how that is just a continuous effort and longing. Like I still long for that peace, and I feel like I'm finding it. And that like living in the middle and learning what I need for today, right? Like, do I need abstinence today? Like when I wake up, how strong do I feel? in my body, right? And in my mind, do I feel like I could have XYZ and not go binge the rest of the day? And if I feel okay, if I know I'm strong enough, then that's okay. But if I know that I'm not, and I haven't been, like this last week before I went to that meeting on Sunday, Megan, I was in a bad place with food. I was like, drinking the sugary drinks and eating just crap and stuff that doesn't serve me. And when I eat that, I don't feel well, but then I want more. And so I am still learning, and I am 41 and I'm still learning. And I wrote this book, and then there's a whole other component, Megan, of like feeling like a fraud, because I want to help people, but like also I'm still working on myself. And that's a really hard place to be, but I want people to feel okay about being in the middle and not having it all figured out and not being perfect and it not being black or white or not being cured of this disorder. And when when we were talking before we started about the event in Tallahassee, the book event, before the event, I was like, gosh, I want people to leave with like hope or like a nugget, just something that they can leave. And I want to make them feel good, and I feel too like we're sold things all the time, right? Like this is the solution. Like this is it. Like buy this and then you'll get XYZ. And like with Big Bones, you don't really get that. You get a book that talks about the messy middle and the imperfect solution, and there's not really an ending. And so I was like, oh, what are they going to leave with? And honestly, Megan, like being in a room with people who shared their stories and talked about their daughters and what they were struggling with in their own bodies and how, they've always felt a certain way or they've always critiqued themselves and been hard on themselves and compared themselves. And I think just being in a room full of people where you're like, okay, the takeaway is that we're not alone. Like we all feel this way in some aspect, and just how can we love ourselves and love each other better? Was kind of my takeaway from that event. But anyways, so yeah, long story long.
No, it's
And,
beautiful. It's
yeah,
absolutely beautiful. I don't want you to ever think of yourself as a fraud, because when I hear your story, and some stories are wrapped up in a little bow at the end, but I see you as a voice for people that are suffering in silence. And a voice sometimes is healing in itself. We're broken and we're whole at the same time.
yeah, love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I have some follow-up questions about your story. And thank you again for sharing. It was very raw, very vulnerable, but it was you. You know what I mean? It was you, and it was your truth, and it was your story. I was curious, when you went to the rehab initially, how long was that? Was that a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, the one in Texas?
10 days.
10 days. Okay. So, and like, what did that consist of? Did they do, therapy sessions? Is it a 12-step? Kind of give us that take.
Yeah. So every morning we started out with a walk with the owner of the rehab facility. And so there was like not exercise, but just getting out and moving our body. So some exercise. And then we would all go eat breakfast together as the entire facility would eat together. And then we would go straight into therapy. So therapy started at 8 a.m. and it was all day long. And so we would have our lunch break, but that therapy consisted of so many different things. So like at 8 a.m., we would be talking about our bodies. Like we had to draw our body or what we thought our body looked like as a chalk line. And then we would lay down and have our partner like actually draw our physical shape. And so you would see like, am I drawing my head too big or my body too big? Or what does that mean? And then you would have a therapist go over all the meanings behind things, guided meditations, like body awareness therapy, all these different things. And you could break out based on like addiction. So, an NA fellow is not going to work on body parts or whatever. Mm. But then for food stuff too, the first couple of days, our food was pre-set on a plate for us. And then we started having to do our own. And so like measuring of food and making sure that everything is a balanced meal, and what does a balanced meal mean? And what is a plate supposed to look like, right? And then what is a regular serving and what you're being served at home. And so they would time your meals and how long it would take you to eat. My first meal, I didn't even know I was being timed, but it was like 7 minutes to eat my entire lunch. And so by the end, I think I was averaging like 30 to 40 minutes to eat a meal. And so there was large emphasis put on that. So like how to eat, right? Like you're not drinking between bites at all. So you can't drink unless it's before or after the meal. You put your fork down, you chew 25 times until your food is basically emulsified. You know, it was like all of these like how to eat, smelling, thanking God for your food and what it's doing to your body, you know, not how you're thinking. It's like how you're associating that lust of food typically versus like what it's actually doing to nurture your body. The protein is giving you energy, you know. So then, yeah, therapy until 5, then you're in like OA meetings, and then you're eating dinner again, either out or in on property. If we went out, it was very like heavily monitored, but also you had assistance. So yeah, it was largely therapy all day. And I think because it's intensive, there's not much of a break in anything.
Now, your book, I love that you wrote it in this gray area that you call where you don't have it all figured out yet, but you're much better than where you were. How did that name come to be, Big Boned?
So I was called Big Boned from I don't know, like as early as I can remember. I don't know, when you have your first core memory, like 4, 5, 6 years old, I remember being called Big Boned from that moment, whether it be from my mom, dad, family members. And so because of that, I identified with that phrase. And I thought, well, if I'm big boned, there's nothing I can do about my size, right? Or I'm just made this way and I'm different than everybody.
Yeah. In my family, we weren't called big boned. We were called booyak, which were of Norwegian descent. So we're like Viking, right? Like big, strong, which I don't really mind being called strong, but booyak also meant, you know, big, like we were like a big presence, you know? And that wasn't the best adjective. I noticed when I was reading your book, in the beginning of the book, you talk about how we really shouldn't be commenting on people's sizes. And I could not agree with you more. I've had so many people comment on my size my whole life. Last summer, I had someone tell me that I looked awful, that because I had gone through a weight loss and that I looked sick. When I was pregnant, I was constantly, you know, people would always comment on how much weight I had gained in my pregnancy because I was pregnant with twins. I had people tell me I looked like a baby T-Rex, like giant belly, big arms. I mean, people have always commented on my weight, I think because it's fluctuated so much.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. I don't know, like at what point, you know, if historically like that has just been a societal thing forever. I don't know. I do think we're getting better, but yeah, it is still so prevalent. Every individual that is so, especially at that age, that vulnerability at that age, you know, where you're like, you don't really know what to do with that comment other than to take it as gospel. Yeah. I mean, people are so impressionable. And why are we commenting anyways? Like, why aren't we asking, how are you? You know, you can still say you look beautiful without telling me about my size. You can still say, oh, you look strong. You look so great. You look happy. You are illuminated today. Like, how are you? Why, like, if we're genuinely interested in somebody or something about someone, why aren't we asking them how they are doing? Yeah, it grinds my gears, but I'm like, why?
Yeah. I have 2 more questions before the lightning round, and one of them is kind of an interesting topic right now, and I'm just curious your thoughts on it. What are your thoughts on the GLP-1s of it all? What are your thoughts on people taking them? What about if someone has an eating disorder and they want to take that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes. Okay. So I talk a little bit about it in the book. My research is not extensive, and so I wanted to not say a ton about it in the book, but a couple things trouble me about GLP-1, specifically with a population or demographic that has an eating disorder. GLP-1s as a whole, I don't think are bad, right? They do a lot of incredible things. They are incredible drugs. The cyclical nature in which someone doses with GLP-1s, it's typically weekly, right? And so that concerns me because it's a cyclical thing, which people who have eating disorders are entrenched in that cyclical nature already. And so that just kind of puts fuel on the fire. It's not hard to get GLP-1s, right? So, I mean, I'm talking like street corner clinics. You've got drive-through med shops. You've got weight loss clinics now that are backed by a clinician that's not even in the office. You know, I mean, these are not hard to get. Also, just any physician who, I don't know about the perks on the back ends for them. I should know more about that, but I don't. They're not hard to get. And so that that in and of itself really concerns me. With people with eating disorders, getting their hands on these things is so easy. And so I mean, this is, it's hard to execute my eating disorder to now it's easy because I've been given this tool that like basically blocks out any type of hunger or food noise that tells me I need to nourish my body. Now it's gone. And so having an aid, right? Like, I mean, yeah. So jury's still out. Again, it's too easy, in my opinion, to get a GLP-1. And so I think that is a negative for me.
Curious your thoughts on it given your life experience. So my last question before the lightning round, just because I'm curious myself, because I have a pipe dream one day of writing a book 10 years down the road. How long did it take you to write your book?
2 years.
Okay.
2 years.
I like it. That's great. Yeah, I've heard one guy that was on my show said 4 years. I've had another person on my show, it was 1 year, another one that was 6 years, like definitely a range, a lot longer than I had thought.
Yeah. So again, it was a 20-year dream. So I wrote like here and there, but I think what helped me do it was I took this course about the business of writing a book. So like, hey, you need to save a penny for every word for editing, or you need to, create a mind map and then an outline and then answer all these 5 questions in every single chapter. And then I got off of that, webinar and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to start this now. 2 years, but really 1 year writing and then 1 year editing and then actual publishing.
I love it. I think a lot of people want to write a book, but not a lot of people do it. So that's what I find super respectful. So we have made it to the lightning round of our show. I asked the same 5 questions to each guest. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
The first question is, you're given 3 options. You have to choose one. Would you shark dive, bungee jump, or skydive?
A shark dive.
Okay. All right. Number 2, you're in a simulation. Every time you walk into a room, the same song plays. What's your song?
Ooh. Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, so good. Any Queen song would be so good.
Give them all to me.
Number 3, what's your favorite Disney movie?
Is Moana Disney?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, Moana. Love
The
Moana.
first one.
The first one.
Number 4, what is something you're obsessed with?
Book 2.
I like that answer. Very good answer. And last question, number 5, what does freedom mean to you?
Woo. Learning to live life with Ed. Not without him, but with him.
It gave me chills.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I can't thank you enough for sharing your story, the raw, the vulnerable, the open, the honest. Where can people find you and find your book?
Yes. So laurenhankins.com is my website. I think Lauren D. Hankins is or do they still call it handle? I don't know.
Yes.
On Instagram. Okay. And then my book, Big Boned, is on Amazon. So you can find that there.
I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of you for sharing your story tonight. And I'm proud of you for the work that you're doing and the content that you're putting out.
Thanks, Megan.
Yeah,
This was
it was
great.
so nice meeting
So
you.
great to meet you. Yes. What a small world.
All right. Bye, girl.
Bye.